Reacher, how every main character compares to their book counterpart. Amazon Prime's Reacher, based on Lee Child's best-selling Jack Reacher series, takes a bold step in adapting these beloved books into a highly praised TV series. While staying true to the gritty, action-packed world of the novels, the show introduces some notable changes in how the main characters are portrayed. From subtle shifts in personality to dramatic differences in physical appearance, here's how the key characters in Reacher compare to their book counterparts. 1. Jack Reacher. Starting with the central figure, Jack Reacher, portrayed by Alan Ritchson in the series, there's an immediate and striking difference from the previous adaptation. Tom Cruise played Reacher in 2 earlier films, but one of the main criticisms of that casting was the dramatic mismatch between Cruise's physicality and Reacher's description in the books. In the novels, Reacher is a hulking 6'5" ex-military policeman who weighs 250 pounds and is built like a tank, attributes that are crucial to his ability to intimidate and physically dominate his adversaries. In contrast to Cruise, Alan Ritchson better embodies the sheer size and strength of Reacher described in the books. At 6'2", Ritchson's athletic build is much closer to the novel's larger-than-life Reacher, which allows the series to more accurately depict scenes where his physical presence alone changes the course of a fight. This is important because Reacher's persona is heavily built around his strength and ability to handle tough situations through both brute force and razor-sharp intellect. Personality-wise, Ritchson's Reacher nails the stoic, no-nonsense approach of the literary character. In the novels, Reacher is a man of few words, emotionally distant, and often detached from normal human relationships due to his nomadic lifestyle. The show stays faithful to this aspect, portraying him as someone who values independence and justice, but struggles with personal connections. His sense of morality, though somewhat unconventional, is mirrored in both versions, as Reacher tends to be an anti-hero who doles out justice in his own way. 2. Roscoe Conklin. Roscoe Conklin, played by Willa Fitzgerald, is Reacher's ally and romantic interest in the first season. In The Killing Floor, the first book in the series on which Season 1 of Reacher is based, Roscoe is introduced as a small-town police officer in Margrave, Georgia. In the novels, she's a no-nonsense, confident, and capable law enforcement officer who stands her ground and is unafraid to challenge both Reacher and the dangers they face together. The TV adaptation stays true to many of these traits, but also expands on Roscoe's role, making her more central to the investigation and giving her a more complex backstory. In the book, her romance with Reacher is less developed, and her character primarily serves as an emotional anchor for Reacher while he uncovers the criminal conspiracy in Margrave. The series, however, provides Roscoe with more agency, allowing her to have a more active role in unraveling the mystery and standing up to corrupt officials. Fitzgerald's portrayal of Roscoe captures her toughness and resilience, but the show emphasizes her vulnerability a bit more than the book does. This creates a more rounded and relatable character, allowing viewers to see Roscoe as more than just a love interest or sidekick to Reacher. Her depth in the series helps to contrast Reacher's cold demeanor, providing emotional stakes that are sometimes missing in the more action-focused books. 3. Oscar Finley. Oscar Finley, the Harvard-educated chief of detectives in Margrave, is played by Malcolm Goodwin in the show. In the book, Finley is introduced as a transplanted northerner, struggling to fit into the sleepy Georgia town and unraveling the town's complex criminal undertakings. While both versions of Finley retain his background as a former Boston homicide detective, there are subtle differences in how he's depicted. In the novels, Finley is more rigid and, by the book, often clashing with Reacher's unorthodox methods. His formality, combined with a dry sense of humor, creates a tense but effective partnership with Reacher. The series, on the other hand, softens some of these edges, giving him a bit more warmth and a touch of vulnerability that isn't as pronounced in the novels. This adjustment allows for a more dynamic relationship between Finley and Reacher, evolving from a wary alliance to genuine mutual respect. Goodwin's Finley maintains the book's sense of intellect and professionalism, but the show adds layers to his personality, exploring his grief over his failed marriage and his internal conflict about being an outsider in Margrave. This makes him a more well-rounded character than in the book, where he primarily serves as Reacher's straight-laced counterpart. 4. K.J. Kleiner. K.J. Kleiner, portrayed by Chris Webster in the series, is one of the primary antagonists in The Killing Floor. In both the book and the show, KJ is the entitled son of the powerful Kleiner family who runs much of the town of Margrave through illegal means. However, the portrayal of KJ in the TV show is significantly more menacing and developed than in the book. In the novel, KJ is a slimy, arrogant figure, but he isn't given as much depth. His role in the conspiracy is clear, but he feels more like a secondary villain compared to his father, who is the main orchestrator of the crime ring. The series, however, gives KJ more screen time and makes him more psychopathic and dangerous. He's not just an arrogant heir to the family's corrupt business, he's portrayed as someone who enjoys violence and manipulation on a more personal level. This makes KJ a more memorable and chilling villain in the show compared to his book counterpart, adding tension to his interactions with Reacher and increasing the stakes of their eventual showdown. The show's KJ is more of a direct foil to Reacher, embodying unchecked power and corruption, while Reacher represents justice and strength. 5. Neagley Frances Neagley, played by Maria Sten in the show, is one of Reacher's closest allies and a fellow former MP military police. Neagley is a recurring character in the Reacher book series, but she doesn't appear in The Killing Floor. Her inclusion in the TV adaptation is a departure from the novel's plot, but it serves to expand Reacher's backstory and give him a personal connection outside of the immediate plot. In the books, Neagley is a highly competent and loyal ally who shares Reacher's military background and his sense of justice. She's tough, no-nonsense, and fiercely independent, often working in private security after leaving the military. The show stays true to these characteristics, and Sten's portrayal captures Neagley's steely demeanor and sharp instincts. Her relationship with Reacher is professional but deeply respectful, and the show mirrors the camaraderie they share in the books. The inclusion of Neagley adds depth to Reacher's military past and reinforces the themes of loyalty and honor that run throughout the series. While her appearance in the first season is brief, it sets up her potential return in future seasons, staying faithful to her recurring role in the books. 6. Paul Hubble. Paul Hubble, portrayed by Mark Bendavid, is a key character in The Killing Floor and plays an integral role in uncovering the larger conspiracy in Margrave. In the book, Hubble is a seemingly meek banker who becomes embroiled in the criminal activities of the Kleiner family. His fear and guilt drive much of his character's arc as he becomes one of Reacher's reluctant allies. The show keeps many of the same elements from the book, but slightly enhances Hubble's role, giving him more agency and a more heroic moment in the climax. In the novel, Hubble is more of a pawn in the grand scheme, whereas in the show, he's portrayed as someone who, despite his fears, steps up when it matters most. Ben David's performance captures both the vulnerability and the quiet courage of the character, adding layers to his relationship with Reacher. Conclusion: Amazon's Reacher does an admirable job of staying faithful to Lee Child's beloved characters while making necessary adjustments for the screen. The casting choices, particularly Alan Ritchson as Jack Reacher, have been praised for aligning more closely with the physicality and personality traits of the book characters. Some characters, like Roscoe and Finley, have been given expanded roles and emotional depth, making them more complex and relatable. Overall, the series balances honoring the source material with making necessary changes for a modern TV audience, resulting in a faithful but fresh adaptation of The Killing Floor.